The question is, imagine you're on your deathbed. Like right now, you're dying. You don't have a week. You don't have a month. You don't have a year. You're in the middle of dying right now. What do you regret not doing?
Mm. Yep.
Do that.
Yeah.
Um,
You're feeling very emotional about this,
yeah,
Noel.
I am. I am.
Why is that? There's a big trigger
Well,
there for you. What is that?
yeah, it's no, because I live with that question every day.
Yeah.
I've lost people, and I've seen things kind of fall apart for people before. My wife has recently lost a couple of close friends, and yeah, it does make me emotional because, and it should make everyone emotional. Like it should have a profound effect on you to
Mm.
really think about the end of your life and think about, like, put yourself in the frame of mind as best you can that
Mm.
you're going to have on that last day, and ask yourself how you wish things were different, because
Mm.
it's the stuff that you didn't do that you regret more than the things that you did do. I mean, every mistake that you actually make, just about, I mean, the ones you survive, right? The
Yes.
ones you survive can make you stronger because you can learn lessons from them.
Today, my guest is Noel Bagwell. He is a preventative lawyer. So basically, his superpower is to prevent people from having massive legal debt. And he's also almost a very brand new author with his brand new book coming out very, very soon, which is called Profit from Legal. And he's also a podcast host from the podcast called Profit from Legal. Hi, Noel. How are you doing?
Yeah, no worries. Doing pretty well, thanks.
Can you tell the audience where you're from and where did you grow up? A little bit of introduction to you.
Yeah, I'm from near Nashville, Tennessee, so kind of the heartland of the southeastern United States. My law office is in Nashville on West End Avenue, and yeah, I kind of grew up in this neck of the woods, and never thought, after moving away back in 2006
Mm.
to go to seminary, I never thought I'd come back. But I left seminary after about a year, worked in luxury property management for a couple of years near Raleigh, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and then decided to go to law school. I went to law school at Cumberland School of Law at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama.
Mhm.
And then, we have family here, my wife and I, so we decided after law school to come back up. Thought that would be a good place to start, having kids, raising kids,
Mhm.
with the support of family. So we ended up coming back here and opened my law practice right after law school. I just kind of hung my shingle. I did get a job offer, to work with a guy I had been clerking with, a lawyer I'd been clerking with, who's general counsel for a couple of small regional banks.
Mhm.
But he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. He said, you can either come and work for me as an associate, where I'd be, subordinate in the law firm, have very little say over my own practice. Or you can rent some space for me. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur even more than I wanted to be a lawyer. So I just couldn't pass up the opportunity. He offered me a great deal on rent and just helped me get a good start.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. And so I hung my shingle out and been practicing law ever since. The first law firm was a general practice firm. It was just a name practice, law office of Noel Bagwell, nothing special, and took whatever came in the door. But I was really miserable with it, so I went a little more niche several months later, and in January of 2013, I founded ExecutiveLP, which is what I'm doing now. Executive Legal Professionals. It's a professional limited liability company, but we've trademarked ExecutiveLP because the other thing is just a mouthful. And yeah, so we do preventive legal service for small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses. I really don't do a ton of litigation. I've done a fair amount of litigation before, but
Mhm.
these days I prevent lawsuits, and we try to avoid charging by the hour. We tend to do everything either on a subscription basis or flat fee. So that's kind of what it's all about.
That is pretty impressive because as a small business owner, and touch wood, I've never had any legal issues, but I've heard of other small business owners having legal issues, especially with trademarks and things like that. Is that something that you encounter? Like somebody would use a name and then that somebody would sue them and they didn't even know that it was a thing. It's just people being clueless. And I mean, I'm one of those people being clueless. Is that then something that you teach people, or is that something that you just go out and help them with?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do teach. It's a bit of instruction because pretty much everywhere, as far as I understand. I mean, I know education systems differ from country to country, but at least in the US, and I think it's the case pretty much globally, there's very little entrepreneurship training at the like secondary level. Like until you get to college, university, or graduate school, you're really not in that, and then it's like self-directed study, right? Like you're choosing to learn that. But at the point where your education is more or less government mandated and government paid for, it's not like they're offering you entrepreneurship courses or, hey, here's how the law works for small business owners. So most people don't really have that as part of their baseline educational experience. So when they get older and they're adults and they decide to start a business or whatever, they learn as they go. Typically, the only people who have the kind of industry knowledge or business knowledge of how to really use a lawyer like me, general counsel, attorney, well, are people who've had corporate experience, and so they've worked with like in-house legal departments or something like that. I hear small business owners all the time say things like, thank God I haven't had a legal issue yet, or I haven't had any legal issues, but I know other people that have. And in the back of my head, there's like this little voice that's just screaming, because it's not that you don't have a legal issue, it's that you don't realize you already have the legal issue, because you have the legal issue when you just have a risk. And my job is to keep that risk from becoming a problem. And if you encounter a problem, that's when most people think, okay, now I have a legal issue. But you had the legal issue well before that. You had the legal issue back when it was just a risk, and everybody has risks. So you need the lawyer before the risk becomes a problem, so that you can keep the problem from happening, ideally. And if a problem does crop up, you can solve it really quickly before it becomes a crisis, like losing a key employee or getting sued, or someone sends you a cease and desist letter for trademark infringement or copyright infringement, where then the solution is much more expensive. And ultimately, that's why I started ExecutiveLP, because I had a lot of clients, small to medium business owners. That's where my passion is. That's who I want to serve. Those are who my clients are. We'd come through my office with matters that I would ask them, why didn't you hire a lawyer in the first place? Why did you wait so long? Why did you wait until you had a lawsuit? Now you're spending thousands of dollars in litigation. And they say, oh, it's just too expensive to hire a lawyer. It's just too pricey. And I would say, well, pricier than a few $1,000s for the lawsuit? And they're like, well, we didn't think we would have the lawsuit. Nobody ever does until it happens to them. And it's so much cheaper, actually, in the long run, to have a well-written contract, to get a lawyer's advice. And it's much more affordable than you would think to hire the preventive lawyer in the first place than to have to hire the litigation attorney to dig you out of a hole that you never should have fallen in the first place.
And it's so true. And you're talking and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, because it's so exactly, that's true. I completely agree with you. So, yeah. Okay. So obviously you basically prevention is better than cure, right? That's kind of then your motto in this circumstances. So how did you get into the whole lawyer thing in the beginning? Like what intrigued you to start this?
Yeah, I ran from it most of my young adult life. I ran from it because my grandfather was the district attorney, the chief prosecutor in our hometown for 16 years. Wow. And my father practiced law for 19 years. And he did criminal defense, medical malpractice, and personal injury law. He was a hardcore trial lawyer, had offices in 3 different cities, and was president of the Tennessee Trial Lawyers Association a couple years. So just imagine, as a young teenager, anytime you get in trouble, that's who you get to argue with to try to get out of your punishment. So that's fun.
It must have been hard growing up.
Right. So, I developed the skills early on, right? Debate and all of that. And I have friends who are like, oh yeah, I was in debate in high school. And I was like, no, not like this, not like this. So I kind of ran from it. I didn't really think I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, business owner. But I took a really windy path to get here. I guess you could say that ultimately what made me do exactly what I'm doing today was having that experience with, after I got out of law school, after I finally did decide to, give in and go to law school and practice law, I had those experiences with small business owners where I genuinely felt badly for them. I thought, now you're spending so much more than you would have had to, like a couple $100s for a contract or free.
Yeah.
Free. Like there was a guy, just to give you an example, he was getting sued for $250,000, and I could have prevented his lawsuit for free. Wow. If he had just called me at the right time and said, can I do this? Can I do this thing? Like I'm in a dispute with this other party and I'm thinking about doing this. Can you help me, or is this a good idea? And I would have immediately said, no, never do that. That's a huge, horrible mistake. Literally for the cost of picking up the phone. It would have cost him nothing. And he was getting sued for $250,000. Now, your mileage may vary. It's probably not going to be that way all the time. But a lot of lawyers will, they'll charge you a nominal fee, next to nothing, really just to keep from wasting their time. They charge the fee because so many people flake out, I think. They make the appointment, then they don't show up, and the lawyer's booked the time, and now he's kind of sitting there on his thumbs waiting for the day to end, or trying to find something else to do. And so it's just inconsiderate. And so I think a lot of lawyers charge a fee because they want to weed out the people who are serious from the people who aren't. But the fee they charge is really just a nominal fee. And so I started taking these matters on mostly because I cared about really small businesses, and I wanted to find a way to get them to hire the lawyer in advance. It was an interesting problem for me to solve. So as soon as I perceived the need, there needs to be some kind of preventive, ongoing, always on service for small businesses. Then my mind started racing at the thought of, okay, well, how do we restructure their incentives so that they'll do that? Because right now they're not doing it because they don't have a good incentive to hire the lawyer in advance. And so then it became just a fun puzzle to solve of, well, if I get rid of the billable hour, then they won't feel like they're in a cab with the meter running. They'll know, well, I've already paid for the service, I might as well get my use out of it. And that was the first big thing. So we wanted them to feel like they could pick up the phone and call the lawyer without it costing them any extra. So unlimited remote legal consultation, that had to be a feature. All the nickel and dime stuff that other lawyers do, we thought we'll just include all of that. So all the de minimis legal services, that was automatically included. Another big thing was legal research. People would want to call, ask a legal question. It might require research. So we said, we'll include all your legal research. And that was the basis of what we now call Legal Lifeline. And we offer that service, and it has a few other services and features that are part of the plan. I won't try to pitch it or anything, but just it's basically all the services that you can expect to use on a regular basis throughout a year for a very small business under $1 million in revenue. And we price it out at $4,800 a year US. So it comes out to about $400 a month US, very affordable. And with that service, you can always just pick up the phone, talk to a lawyer anytime you need to. It's kind of like having a legal department right down the hall from you. And then we have a more robust service that has a lot of other things in it that the cost of it scales and the size of it scales in terms of number of attorneys assigned to your account. It scales with the size of your business. So a larger business, obviously they're going to pay more than a smaller business. And that's our Signet service. It starts at $1 million and goes up from there. I mean, the businesses that qualify, they have $1 million in revenue. We don't charge $1 million. The cost is something like, it's less than 3% of your annual budget on legal. It's pegged to the national statistics on what small businesses spend on legal support, and we have a value-based billing methodology that we use to price that service. So the big thing is you're not paying by the hour. Like, we wanted to get rid of the billable hour because the feeling was people won't use the service if we're just charging them for time. Instead, we want to deliver a really valuable service that they're going to use the heck out of, and then just bill them at like a flat subscription fee that's the same amount every month so that they can budget for it. And then the other problem was having a conversation about return on investment on legal services, because most lawyers don't do that. They don't even try to, and it's not their fault, right? They're just not trained to do that. They don't have the experience. They don't see the need. There are lots of reasons why they don't do it, but it's hard to get a small business owner to decide to spend money on legal services, which can be relatively expensive, if you don't explain to them, okay, yes, you're making an investment in your business and you might spend, $40,000 on legal this year, but you're going to make back that money and then some. It's going to be a profitable proposition from cost savings, from growth potential, making your business more valuable, making it less stressful to run, and then of course improving resilience, the risk management component that everybody thinks of.
Yeah, I really love what you do, and like you say, it's so cheap to pay that in comparison to having this massive lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
What
Hmm.
what made you go for, because I serve small business owners, and I've literally tailored my whole business. Before we push record, I said to you, like, we're doing, like everything near my business, and it's because I started serving small business owners on a level where they can actually afford my services, which is a monthly subscription, right?
Yep.
And so doing that it's not an easy process to set up, because obviously as yourself as a business owner, you take a massive cut salary wise, because you need to, you cater for people. It's a long-term goal. What made you decide to do that? What made you decide to actually start serving small business owners and not just, charge somebody thousands for your services because you can?
Yeah. I mean, make no mistake. It's not like race to the bottom on price for what I do. Like, I'm not trying to undercut anyone on price. I'm certainly not the most expensive lawyer, but I'm not the cheapest either. And I feel like you tend to get what you pay for, and I tend not to compromise very much on price. Like, I don't give a whole lot of discounts or anything like that. We do tend to do value adds, but I think your question is more about the market, right? So
Yes.
I selected the small business market because it's close to my heart. It's close to what I care about and the kind of life that I want to live. I mean, if I wanted to be in a big law firm, like where you're just making a huge salary, but you're working 60 hours, 80 hours a week. I mean, not that I'm not doing that now, but working for someone else, and you have these sort of minimum billable hour requirements. I mean, the culture and the pace and the strictures of it, working in a big law firm,
Yeah.
would be stifling for me personally. So part of it was, you can call it office culture, the desire to be your own boss, being an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and so I get them. I get entrepreneurs because I am one. I speak their language. I understand what's important to them. And really the biggest hurdle that I ever have is getting them to believe that a lawyer actually cares about them and wants their business to succeed, and doesn't have some ulterior motive. Like, I think I've run up against people feeling like Executive LP and the services we offer are just too good to be true, and they don't trust it. Like, they're kind of gun shy, and it takes a lot of value delivery for us to kind of win them over. So we do a lot of continuing education, or education style outreach, content marketing, and that. Like, that's why we do the podcast. I've written hundreds of articles over the years, several reports. I just put out a lot of high value content, and then I do a lot of public speaking and teaching. I teach other lawyers continuing legal education, and then I also do like veteran entrepreneurship training on small business formation and intellectual property issues, and some other things. So it's just a lot of that. And once people see where your heart is, they start to open up a little bit. They start to listen a little more. It's a bit of a slow burn in terms of our like marketing and capturing a client, but once a client enters into our service ecosystem, they tend to have a long relationship with us, because
Right.
they see that we actually care about them, and we're there to make their business more valuable, and help them any way we can.
Yeah, and it makes sense to do that, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
prevention. That's the whole idea. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that makes us different from other lawyers too. Is if you're billing by the hour, the goal is, or if you're just on one project, I've just got you for this one lawsuit, or I'm drafting this one will, or this one contract, or doing this one real estate closing. It's always just one transaction, and so the lawyer has this incentive to get as much as you can, because you don't know when the next client's coming. You hope that there's another client coming in the door, but you kind of got to get while the getting's good. And for me, the whole incentive structure is completely different. My incentive is to establish a real connection and a real relationship with someone, and then maintain that for as long as I can. So I'm not looking to charge them as much as I can, especially not all at once. And we want to kind of spread it out over time. That's good for me because it makes my income less bursty. It's not quite so up and down. It's a little more even keel. So I can budget in my own life and for my family a little bit better. But it also it has the same effect on the client. You know, they're not coming up with a whole bunch of money all at once, so it doesn't disrupt their cash flow.
Yes.
Instead, you know, it's a monthly planned expense. They can budget for it. It's there, and then they can adjust their pricing for their goods and services if they need to. And ultimately, that's a good business owner will realize that they're not the ones really paying for legal services, just like they're not the ones paying for any of the expenses in their business. Their customers are, because they pass those costs on to the consumer in the form of goods and the prices for goods and services.
Yes.
And the business owners that have a big price objection are the ones who don't really understand budgeting. You know, like this is a planned expense. You need to make it a part of your budget. Or the ones who resist, you know, allocating a certain amount of their budget to legal because they would rather just add that to their bottom line, and take the risk that their legal issues will never become problems or crises. And that's just you're kind of gambling. You know, it's like having a bomb with a timer, and it's going to go off eventually. You just don't know how much time's left on the clock. So
how does that work for you guys with like liability insurance? Because most businesses have liability insurance, right? Which mostly should actually help them to prevent lawsuit, or like cover lawsuits and things like that. So how does that, because do you get that as like a feedback, you know, it's like, oh, I don't need you, I've got liability insurance. Is that sometimes something that pops up?
yeah, I mean, very rarely have I heard that particular, like, I don't need you because I have liability insurance. I think most people understand that if they make a claim on their liability insurance, it's only good up to a certain amount. And the amount of the risk might be greater than their policy limits, or the limits on any particular claim on their policy. So that's one issue, that the insurance might not fully cover all their risk. And then the other one is, say that it does, your premiums are going to go up, you know. It's just like if you have an automobile accident and car crash, and your insurer is going to raise your rates. Heck, if you get a ticket, they're probably going to raise your rates, right? So speeding ticket or something. So they'll find any excuse to raise your rates. So the best thing to do is reduce the risk. I have a good friend named Kevin Valley, who is he's in Trinidad and Tobago, and he is a certified business valuator. And I was talking to him on an episode of our podcast on Profit from Legal, and we were talking about what makes a business more valuable. And he said a business is more valuable as a function of two things. One is risk, and the other is growth. The lower the risk, the higher the growth, the more valuable the business is. And lawyers have a strong influence on both of those things. We can dramatically lower the risk profile for a business. We can also help you build assets, especially intellectual property assets. You know, build them, develop them, register them, protect them, you know, and nurture them. Help you get the most out of them, and that can directly impact growth in a positive way. So a lawyer is a huge value add, and what I tell people is, if you're making a decision like, I'm not going to hire a lawyer because I already have insurance and I'm covered on that, or I just don't see that I have any legal issues, I just don't understand how the law and regulations and relationships with others impact my risk profile. If that's the case, if you just don't know, you've got legal blind spots, you can't see the risks, and you're making those kinds of decisions, or having those issues as the basis for not hiring a lawyer, I encourage clients to really think about what they're saying. And what they're saying is, they're only looking at one dimension of their business. They're looking at the risk dimension. And that's not all lawyers are for. In every country in the world, lawyers have more or less a similar skill set. And the skill set comes down to two things. It's managing relationships, structuring the relationships between people and businesses, managing relationships, and solving problems. They're great analytical minds. Lawyers are trained to do issue spotting, critical analysis, come up with creative solutions to problems. And so being a problem solver, being a relationship manager is a useful thing for every business. And there's a huge trend towards in-house legal departments and away from outside general counsel. And part of the reason for that is more and more businesses want a lawyer on their team, as an employee in-house as soon as they can afford it, because they realize that they do so much more than law now, that they actually do what we call legal operations. And that's why ExecutiveLP started developing Profit from Legal. because lawyers do more than just law. They do a bit of business strategy. They help solve problems. They help manage relationships within the business and between the business and vendors and suppliers, between the business and customers. And so we developed this, it's a legal operations function install service. So if your business is in that $10 million to $50 million range, where maybe you've had outside general counsel for a number of years, maybe you want to keep them, but you want to also add an in-house lawyer, or maybe start building a legal department for your business, you know that you need something to align the legal services of your legal department or your outside general counsel with your overall business goals. What are your enterprise goals? What are your business operations what do they look like? What do those workflows look like? And is legal a part of that?
Yes.
Because it should be. Legal should be integrated into those workflows, and that's what legal operations does. And so we have Profit from Legal, which sets all that up. Over the course, it's an 8-week delivery time frame for that particular product. And so we come in, work directly with the business to set up their legal operations function, either in their legal department if they have one, or with their outside general counsel, or even just laying the foundation, even if they don't have the legal support structure yet, laying the foundation for adding that on so that they can get the most out of those relationships. Very, very valuable and surprisingly inexpensive.
That sounds amazing. I love it, Noel. It's a really unique way to approach things within your business, looking from the outside in. It's a different structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this show is about going behind the scenes to see what makes people successful. And for different people, it looks different. So what do you contribute to your success? What do you think is that thing that drives you to be successful every day?
I'm perhaps irrationally optimistic. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that trait. I think they don't think so much about the cost or the risk on the front end when they're excited about an idea, and they don't let other people stop them from just plowing forward. And they get all excited about an idea, and then they just rush headlong into it without maybe considering all of the consequences. I think that is both something that has contributed greatly to my success, as well as something that's held me back. If I'm really honest, I can't claim that it's 100% a positive thing, because it's kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back a lot of the time, because you don't consider all the consequences. And so you kind of have to step back when things don't work out. Sometimes they do work out, and sometimes they don't. And people say, well, that's just luck. And I often respond that luck is really just the intersection of opportunity and preparation. You can make your own luck, because luck is just opportunity plus preparation. You can cultivate opportunities. You can put yourself in communities and build connections with other people where you're more likely to have better opportunities. And you can be more and more prepared for the kind of opportunities you want to have every day. So if you do both of those things, you're really cultivating luck as a skill. And I've found that when I'm more prepared, and when I'm, getting out there and cultivating relationships and building opportunities for myself, or building the conditions for opportunities to arise, I get a little luckier, and I get to do less of the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's just 2 steps forward and then, try again. Another thing is, I have lost a lot in my life. I almost have a pathological fear of loss. I've just, like my family, I grew up very wealthy, but we lost everything. Like, went from my dad pulling down, 7 figures to would have been homeless if my grandmother had not taken me in. It's like we literally lost the house, lost everything. I've seen what it looks like for a small business to collapse. My dad's practice ultimately did, not because he was a bad lawyer, but because he made some bad business decisions. And I realized early on that it's not just about being good at what you do. You also have to be good at the business of what you do. And even my dad, who's, a much better businessman now, and, he learned a lot from that, and, everybody kind of moved on with their life. But living through that experience, kind of losing everything, was both traumatizing and very instructive. And so that the fear of failure, the fear of loss, really propels me to work really hard every day. Now I'm responsible, I have a wife and a son. I'm responsible for them. And so I want to take care of them and make sure that they never have to go through what I went through. And it's just a powerful motivator to get up and consistently push every day, regardless of how you feel. You know, there's a big movement to just be happy, you know, just live your best life and be, you know, sort of Instagram optimistic. Barbara Ehrenreich gave this great talk called Smile or Die. And it was about the dangers of corporate optimism, like having an optimistic, sunny disposition and a positive attitude always, no matter what, and how fake that is, and how that's actually, it keeps us from hearing sort of the warning bells of, you know, authentic criticism that has your best interest at heart. And so, like, I don't have that kind of optimism, but I have the kind of optimism that says, yeah, I'm going to fail and I'm going to get knocked down, but for every time I get knocked down, I'm going to get back up, and I'm going to keep going because I have people depending on me, people, you know, expecting great things of me. And so just like a ruthless tenacity, I guess, would be in the face of certain failure. I mean, every entrepreneur fails at some point. Every scientist fails. Every politician fails. Hey, no matter what career path you choose, every businessman, everybody, right? They all fail. But what defines us is not our failures, but what lessons we learn from them and whether or not we get back up afterwards. So if I have any measure of success, and I'm not saying I do, but if I do, it's because I charge headlong into the fray. I follow my passions and what I consider to be good ideas at the time, and I don't listen to the naysayers. And then when I fail, I don't let it get me down. I just get right back up and try again with the lessons that I've learned from that. And hopefully that'll be enough.
It's beautiful because it's when you lie down and you sulk in your failures that you fail, because, you know, it's the getting up part that's actually the thing that makes you eventually successful, because you keep trying and trying. I've got a big thing.
I heard someone say once that, sorry to cut you off, but just this one last little bit. I heard someone say once, you decide when the game is over. Exactly. The game doesn't end until you do. Like, how do you know that wasn't just the first half?
Exactly.
You know?
And I completely agree with you, because I literally restarted my entire business this year. It's like I was starting from scratch because I just changed everything. I didn't like the way it was going. And this is me throwing away 2 years of working in my business, but not throwing it away, really just reinventing the wheel. But it is literally like starting from scratch. And that's hard for a lot of people to do. And it's advice that I got from a mentor that said, listen, you're miserable. Why? Why do this? And it's crazy when you realize that if you just speak to that somebody says, well, this is, you know, have that conversation with somebody, that real conversation where you're like, oh yeah, this is actually, why am I doing this? I don't need to do this. And it's very true what you say. I completely agree.
You should have a mentor. I mean, I think that's brilliant that you have a mentor, that you're listening to them. And when I say don't listen to the naysayers, that doesn't mean don't listen to criticism from people who love you and want what's best for you. What I'm saying is, if there are people out there who are just, you know, being negative and they don't really get it, they don't really get you, they don't really get what you're about, and they're just like, yeah, or maybe I don't know if that's going to work out, or maybe they're jealous of your success, you know, or they lack the courage and the ambition to really go out on a limb and do something as bold as you know, entrepreneurship. They would rather trade time for dollars and have the 9-to-5, which there's nothing wrong with, but it does feel a bit safer, right? And so maybe that's their situation. And so they're kind of not able to relate to you. But the people that you need to surround yourself with, and the people you really need to listen to, are the people who do relate to you, who do work with entrepreneurs all the time, who are those kinds of support personnel like mentors, accountants, marketing and sales experts, lawyers, bankers, insurance professionals. They all work with entrepreneurs all the time. They know what works and what doesn't, because you're not their only client. They've seen it 100 times before, and so you're kind of foolish if you hire one of those professionals and pay them a bunch of money for their opinion and then disregard that opinion. And it's like, for one thing, what are you getting? You know, what are you doing with your money? You're just throwing it away. And for another thing, like, do you really know better than they do? Do you know better than the expert? And so many of them will give you advice just for the asking. You know, don't be afraid to call up a lawyer and even to try to negotiate a rate or negotiate a flat fee for a project and say, look, I have this problem. I need a solution for this, and I want to pay a flat fee. I don't want to pay by the hour. What would you charge me? And you'll be surprised. You can actually negotiate for those things. A lot of people don't even try because
And
they
I think it's not
self-reject.
possible. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
not possible. Yeah, it's very
yeah.
true. Very true.
Don't self-reject.
Yes.
Don't self-reject. That's always a mistake. My dad actually told me when I started Executive LP, he said, I don't think your business model is going to work. That's never going to work. He was like, there just isn't a market for preventive legal services for small businesses. He said, trust me, I've practiced law for 20 years. I've seen what works and what doesn't. And you know that there just isn't a big enough market for that, and small business owners they're tight, they're cheap, they have a scarcity mindset, they're worried about protecting what they have, and they've bootstrapped up and they're undercapitalized, so they're just not going to part with the kind of money that you're going to need them to pay for your business to make it. And he wasn't entirely wrong, because that those have been challenges that I've had to confront. But here I am, here my practice is 8 years later, making it. Not like I'm not a multimillionaire by any stretch, right? But my business is profitable. I'm able to make an impact. I'm able to serve my clients, and I've made a difference in the world already. I've saved my clients millions of dollars. And that's saying a lot when many of my clients don't make more than $1 million a year.
Yes.
So the ability to have an impact that's meaningful, to really execute on the mission that your business has, that's really, really fulfilling. And if you can make a living and like, live a decent life, you don't have to be rich and you don't have to be famous. And there's so many people chasing Instagram glory, and they need to stop and realize that's not what success really means. That's not what life is about. It's about being able to do good for others and show other people that you care about them and love on them, and have enough left over at the end of the day for your family, and keep the lights on and get up and do it again the next day, and just do that relentlessly for as long as you can. That's the way that you leave a legacy.
Yes. I love that, Noel. And the most interesting thing is most of the Instagram people that have like those followers, they don't actually make money, and it's just because you have a big following doesn't actually mean that you are profitable. I mean, I know personally of somebody that has like a massive following on Instagram, and they're broke because they don't actually make the money, because there's not real impact, and there's that impact and profits. And that's like the slogan that I just go by: impact and profit, because it's so important to make the impact first, and the profit will automatically just come. You don't have to try very hard for that.
And there are so many people too. I mean, it's easy to kind of to take the cheap shots at the Instagram influencers or whatever, right? Like, I don't envy them their success, and I don't have a
No,
problem with anyone taking that path to success.
exactly.
But
It's
it's kind of like trying to make it in LA, or or in Nashville, if you want to be a singer songwriter or a movie star or an actor or a stage actor in New York. It's kind of like, for every one person that really gets a huge following like that, there are how many tens of thousands or perhaps hundreds of thousands of users that don't have that success. And I'm connected to some pretty successful and influential people. And you're right that followers don't directly necessarily translate into revenues. But perhaps the bigger worry for me isn't so much that you can't make money doing it, because obviously you can if you
can.
monetize that correctly, and you have a good business strategy to go along with your content strategy. Content strategy will get you followers, but it's not necessarily a business plan. But if you have a good business plan to go along with it, you can make some good money. One of
Yes.
my friends recently just went from 0 to 400,000 followers on TikTok, and I won't say who they are, but just a very successful self promoter, very talented person, just the kind of person that you would see on Instagram. Smart, beautiful, charming, just an amazing person. But then I look at the TikTok content that was created to have that effect, and I maybe there is a lot of value that people find in that beyond just entertainment value. Maybe that's having a big positive impact in the world that I'm not aware of. But I ask myself, like, would I spend the same amount of time, energy, effort, resources, whatever it took to do that, um, to get the same outcome? I don't know that I would. I'm not here to criticize. I'm certainly not, because I think that the person who did that has the capacity to use that platform that they've built. And they might even say, well, it's about building the platform, building the following, and once you have it, you can pivot slightly and start delivering more value. If you try to deliver a bunch of value to people when you have a smaller platform, it just doesn't go as far. You don't have the impact that you want to have. So you kind of have to have the big platform to have the impact. I suspect that might be the answer to my skepticism about the value of that, but and maybe that's the way it is. But I haven't had a conversation with them yet. I would like to. But I encourage everybody to ask yourself why. Why are you doing what you're doing? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to build a social media following, if you're trying to build a big audience and a platform, you have a podcast or whatever, why are you doing it? What is the impact you want to make in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Because success, and I wanted to come on this podcast and talk about what makes you successful,
Yes.
because success, material success, fame, money, all of that is not a means to its own end. You need to ask yourself what you're going to do with all that. I mean, look at Bill Gates. Like, the guy's worth just what, 70 some odd $billion, and he can't give it all away before he's dead, you know? Like, he can't. He could spend every day giving away his whole fortune and would struggle to give away all that money. I think people who have a lot of success end up with it's like the old rap song, right? More money, more problems. Like, you end up with a lot of, you're not really better off. You're just trading one set of problems for a different set of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to know in advance, like, what are you going to do when you reach your success? First, define it. What does that look like for you? And then when you get there, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I agree. Hashtag goals is like I used to coach one-on-one and setting goals for small business owners. I realized early on in my coaching that it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And for me, I've just always been good in setting goals and achieving them, and it came naturally to me. But then I realized it's not a thing. You know, a lot of people do struggle with it. Do you have like a blueprint or a set of rules that you use to set goals and achieve them?
Yeah, I mean, I like the SMART goals format. I mean, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But I do some philosophical variation on SMART.
So how do you do that?
So I take a more existential and holistic approach. You know, I'll sit down and start off getting people, like, our signature method we call the 5 legal E's.
Okay.
And because nobody likes legalese, you know, the sort of legal speak, gobbledygook legalese, but everybody does like our legal E's, the 5 legal E's. And they start off with encounter. So the first thing we want to do before we set any goals for anyone is ask them where they are and how that makes them feel.
Yep.
Like, how would you describe your current situation? How do you feel most days? Not how do you feel today, but how do you feel most days? And, you know, are you living a life that you're proud of? And then the life that you're proud of. And then the next question is, and this is a really, really uncomfortable one. It's not like trigger warning uncomfortable, but it's pretty uncomfortable for a lot of people. They don't want to think about this, and most people will kind of resist it, right?
Yeah.
The question is, imagine you're on your deathbed. Like right now, you're dying. You don't have a week. You don't have a month. You don't have a year. You're in the middle of dying right now. What do you regret not doing?
Yep.
Do that.
Yeah.
Um,
You're feeling very emotional about this.
yeah, I am.
Why is that? There's a big trigger there for you. What is that?
Yeah, because I live with that question every day.
Yeah.
I've lost people, and I've seen things kind of fall apart for people before. My wife has recently lost a couple of close friends, and yeah, it does make me emotional, because, and it should make everyone emotional. Like, it should have a profound effect on you to really think about the end of your life, and think about, like, put yourself in the frame of mind as best you can that you're going to have on that last day, and ask yourself how you wish things were different, because it's the stuff that you didn't do that you regret more than the things that you did do. I mean, every mistake that you actually make, just about, I mean, the ones you survive, right? The ones you survive can make you stronger, because you can learn lessons from them. It's the things that you don't do that you end up regretting the most. And so I don't want people to have those regrets. I have seen what that looks like, and it's devastating. So I want to help people as best I can, at least in a professional context, to really die without regrets, to live their life well, and for that to be really meaningful. It's profoundly important to me because it's something that I think about every day. I don't need to pin it to my wall. I don't need to write it on my bathroom mirror. I don't need a constant reminder because every day I wake up knowing that this could be the last day. And there's really no way to tell. You're not promised tomorrow. You might be in great health
Yeah.
and step out in the street, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you have to live every day at least taking directionally correct steps towards the things that really are going to not just make you happy because happiness is so transient,
Yes.
but that give you meaning and value and purpose in your life.
Yeah.
Not just this sort of emotional happiness, but a deep sense of peace and contentment.
Yeah.
You know, knowing that you lived a life that was worthy of
Yes.
respect.
Yeah.
So
Agree with
yeah,
you.
no, it is that. So that's the explore step. We do that. We ask people where we want to go, and we kind of dial it down a little bit after that. We ask, you're on your deathbed. What would you regret? But then we dial it down and say, okay, what about, can you be 10 years from now? What does being closer to that outcome look like? 5 years from now, 3 years, 1 year. And we kind of help them make plans in that way and set those goals. And then after that, there's enrich. We look at all the systems, like what are you doing right now? What are your habits? What do your habits look like? What do your systems and processes look like? Which ones are directionally correct? Which ones are not? The ones that are not get trimmed. And the ones that are kind of borderline, we say, well, what tweaks and adjustments could we make to get them directionally correct? And if there aren't any, then they get trimmed as well. So it's encounter, explore, enrich. That's that step. And then envision. We talk about clarity and the importance of being able to regularly achieve a flow state and be highly productive, where you're in this
I
state of
like that.
flow of just like
Like
super
momentum.
focus.
Yeah, like you're in momentum and you keep going. I like that. Yeah.
And then communicating that vision
Yeah.
of what that looks like to your team and everybody that supports, so that everybody's very crystal clear on exactly what you do, how you do it, and how they can help. They know their place in the ecosystem of your activity. And then finally there's the enforce step, which funnily enough is that's what everybody thinks of when they think of lawyers. They think of enforce. But before you can really lay down systems and processes and contracts and handbooks and policy manuals and all of that that are meaningful and effective and really have the optimal impact on getting you where you want to go, first you have to have the conversation about where you are, where you want to go, what's working and what isn't, who on your team needs to be aligned with your vision. And once you've got all that stuff done in the first 4 legal E's, you can craft really great legal outcomes, really great legal solutions. And that's the enforce step. And that's where kind of the rubber meets the road and everything
Yeah.
clicks.
Can we just quickly sorry, can you just quickly call them out again? The top 5?
Yep, it's encounter, explore, enrich, envision, and enforce. The 5 legal E's, and you can go to profitfromlegal.com and take there's like a link to take the legal profitability scorecard. And when you do, you'll get, when you complete the legal profitability scorecard, then you get 2 things. One of them is our 5 legal E's canvas, which is a free tool that you can use. It has all the 5 legal E's printed in there, and then it has an exercise to help you with any decision that you want to improve, any relationship you want to improve. You can apply that methodology to it, and it's got like a little exercise in there to help you do that. That's one of the gifts. And then the other gift is a free legal profitability report, where we unpack the concept of legal profitability. What is it? Why is it important? And how can you get started improving it in your business? So if you want the 5 legal E's canvas, all you have to do to get it is just complete the Profit from Legal scorecard, and the URL, you can just go to profitfromlegal.com and follow the link there to get to that.
That's
Free
awesome.
resource. Like I said, just giving stuff away. That's what we want to do.
That's great.
Create
That's
value.
awesome. I recommend you guys go check that out because it's a really great. I think it's a great resource, and I like the way that you've mentioned them and how they work together. So this show, I always ask this one special question, and that is
Sure.
for people. Okay, so my audience is a mixed breed of people, as in it's people that already have a business, but they're struggling to go to the next level, or they're just a little bit stuck. And there's also the other side of the coin where people have not yet started their business because they're sitting on the fence and they're just really struggling to give themselves that push, or maybe they had started, they failed, and they're just struggling again to get, to get going again. What advice would you have for somebody that are sitting on the fence and they're like, "Ugh, I don't know if I can do this entrepreneurial thing"?
I would say there are two bits of advice.
Mhm.
The first bit of advice is don't start alone. You do need, like, there's so much advice out there of just get started, just do it. That's true, and that's good advice. That's accurate. But just doing it and just getting started doesn't necessarily mean put a product in the marketplace for sale. That's not what starting a business looks like, right? Starting a business can look like writing a business plan and finding the right partners that you've identified in that business plan that are necessary to make your business work. And the biggest part, I think, of a business plan that gets frequently overlooked and taken for granted is the organizational chart. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, they're going to fall into one of two roles in the organizational chart. And a big mistake they make is trying to do them both themselves. So in the org chart, there's the CEO, and then there beneath them, there's the chief executive officer, CEO for people who don't speak the lingo yet. You'll get there. It's all good. Then the COO, the chief operating officer. Then you have the chief financial officer, the CFO, and then you have the head of marketing and sales.
Yeah.
So in the org chart, you've got this one, the founder usually is the CEO, usually, not always, but
Yeah.
at the top. And then beneath the executive officer, you have these other three functions. They're all equal in terms of being essential to the business. You can't really do everything you need to do without all four of them. And your business will be best if those four roles are not covered by the same person, and really that you don't have more than one person, or you don't have one person covering more than one of those roles. So if your CEO is also your COO, you can do that for a while, but it's not ideal, and you should get out of that situation as soon as you can. For a lot of entrepreneurs, they're either going to be a good CEO or they're going to be a good COO, their chief operating officer. And this is because most people are either good at what they do or they're good at the business of what they do, but rarely both. Very, very rarely are you good at
So
both. And
true.
yeah,
So true.
so you can be a technician in your business and really focus on, like, making whatever it is you make, and like developing your systems and processes. And, like, I have a friend who makes, who I don't want to say what he makes because you'll know exactly who he is right away, but he makes really cool products, and he does not like dealing with or thinking about the business of what he does. He doesn't want to think about marketing. He doesn't want to think about sales. He wants someone else to deal with that. He wants to outsource all of that. He doesn't want to deal with the executive function. He wants to be in the shop making what he makes because he's an artisan. He's a craftsman, and he's really very good at it and getting better, like, with every product he makes. He does custom work, and he's just really great. So he is a great chief operating officer, the guy to be in charge of the process of how stuff gets made. But what I told him he needs is, like, you need a CFO, you need someone in that role. You can outsource that function early on in your business to an accountant. You need a chief executive officer, so get a business manager, someone to help you manage and kind of keep everything, all the plates spinning, and keep everything going, keep your appointment book, manage all of your teams and all of that. And then get a marketing firm to do your marketing and sale, and then get a commissioned salesperson or someone to help you with sales and help you with, like, processing your orders and all of that sort of thing. If you have to have your CEO kind of doing double duty with some sales functions, that's a good kludge early on, but obviously you want your CEO doing high level business development and execution as soon as possible, like kind of managing everything that's going on.
Yeah.
It's also good to have a key person of influence that's associated with your brand, with your business, someone who's, a recognizable face in the industry, and that can take some time to build, and that's fine. But have the org chart, right? Really focus on your organizational chart when you're doing your business plan, and keep in mind that while you will be tempted to put one person in multiple roles because of the low cost of doing that, it's a hidden cost. It doesn't take the cost away. It doesn't really lower the cost. It just hides it.
Yes.
And the hidden cost is opportunity cost. It's the cost of doing this versus doing something else. And when you stretch one person too thin, they're not free to do all the other things that really they need to be focusing on doing. And people are best when they specialize on one thing, do
Exactly.
one thing really, really well.
Yeah.
So that's the org chart and the business plan. That's advice number one. Advice number two is do not start undercapitalized. You need money to start your business, and that's a very unpopular bit of advice because it quote unquote holds people back, but it's horrible. I've done it. My business right now, my law firm right now, I started it undercapitalized. I made $12,000 my first year, and if my wife had not been employed, it would have failed before it even got off the ground, right? I was successful, and I bootstrapped because I had a loving spouse who was able to work with me, and at the time we didn't have kids, and so she was like, yeah, do your thing, live your dream, you build that, I'll work over here, we'll figure it out. And without her support, I never could have been successful in my business. So I'm lucky, in that I had her support
Yeah.
early on. But don't do that. Like, go out and find, go with your four people, your four man business or 4-person business, leadership team, your CEO, CFO, COO, head of marketing and sales, and your strong business plan, and then pitch your concept to an investor or get a business loan and really have a good handle on your numbers. Know your numbers, know your projected costs for your first year, for the first 6 months, but really that first year, you're really going to need to know what it's going to cost you to run that business and become profitable. And then get enough money, whether it's a business loan or some kind of investment, get enough money to run it well and do it right. And don't skimp on things like marketing, don't skimp on advertising, don't skimp on legal, and don't skimp on accounting. If you cut corners there, it will hurt your business in the long run. So start right with the right people and enough money to get going, and you'll have a much better chance of success.
That is the most unusual advice that I've had on here, because normally it would be because I am big on coaching. Don't do business loans, because I mean, I bootstrap my business, and every other entrepreneur I know has not taken out a single cent in loans because you just bootstrap. And I guess I think the only saving grace is really investing in your marketing and your sales. First, just if you have a product line, just keep going and sell this product until you make enough money to hire people, right? And that's the way it goes without having to do loans. But I've
Yeah, it can
done
go either way,
it.
but I'll tell you,
Yeah.
one way is easier,
Yeah.
and there's less real risk and less real danger
Yeah.
if your business entity is properly structured and you're not personally liable for the debt.
That's true.
That it and so you need to that's part of don't skimp on a lawyer, hire the lawyer in advance. You really need the lawyer before you need anybody else, because it's the lawyer that manages the relationship. So at the point where you've got several people together and you're going to start the business together, even if it's just two of you or three of you, you don't have the whole team,
Yeah.
but you're going to start the business and start like a corporation or a limited liability company or something like that, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, and the other factors that are relevant.
Yeah.
Once you have all of that sorted, go and talk to the lawyer and ask them, how can we structure this business so that we're not personally responsible? A lot of times lenders will ask for a personal guarantee, but you can short circuit that request by buying a letter of credit or putting up some kind of collateral, something like that. And when you have the money on the front end to spend on advertising and on marketing without necessarily having sales and proof of concept, it can really amplify your growth faster. Like, rapid growth comes from advertising, marketing, and being able to deliver a remarkable result quickly. And money, like having a well capitalized business, having investors, or even having debt on the front end is not an impediment to success. It's not a big hurdle, because if you have those revenues, you can pay off the debt.
Exactly.
What I see is so many people so undercapitalized that they never get to the point where they're making the sales. They don't generate enough revenue to be able to do any marketing or advertising, and they stay small and in starvation mode for
A long
years
time.
sometimes. Yeah.
Um,
So I would say it'd be better for them to go take the business loan and
yeah.
buy some advertising.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you on that. And that's why I started my subscription thing, because there's so many small business owners that don't have the capital to hire this big marketing agency or consultancy to come in where it costs them like a few $1,000s a month, because they either don't have it or they don't see the value in paying for it. And then they just stay this tiny little company and work 60, 70 hours a week and not make a profit. And they, like you say, in that spot for years and years and years.
And
And
if you're a service provider or a
yeah,
products provider where you're selling things that are, too expensive for people to pay for, it's going to be disruptive to their cash flow. They need a financing option.
exactly.
Another thing to do is to consider working with a finance partner for your goods and services. If you're starting a business, ask yourself how your customers are going to come up with the money to pay you. And if the answer is, well, they could always put it on a credit card, consider that a lot of them won't, because they're averse to loading themselves up with credit card debt. But
Yeah.
if you can offer them very attractive finance terms, and I'm not talking about self-finance, I'm talking about through a financing partner. If you
Yes.
can go out and find someone to do financing for your goods and services, and you can say, well, we work with this finance company and
Mm.
they will offer you easy monthly payments, 6 months no interest or whatever, 6 months same as cash or whatever. You see this a lot. Like there's a company here in my hometown called Discount Tire, and if you have their in-store account, credit card or whatever, you can put 4 new tires on your car, and it's 6 months same as cash. After 6 months, you start paying interest.
Mm.
So I think that's a really great. And Discount Tire, they're getting paid in full in advance from the finance company. So as the service provider or the goods provider, you're getting paid up front. The risk isn't on you; it's on the finance company, and you don't have to worry about accounts receivable so much because you're getting paid from the financier, and the finance company's getting paid on interest for people who don't, pay it off at 0%
Yes.
or whatever. So
Yeah.
building those relationships can also get you in the profitability and
Yes.
lower your expenses sooner.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And yes, great ways to do that as well. Noel, this has been fantastic. Where can people reach you? Obviously, you did mention your website in between the questions and so on, but can you please just tell people where they can reach you and basically, what you can do for them?
Yeah, sure. So I can do a couple of things for you. I can just talk to you like a human for one thing, right?
That would be
Because we're
good.
both we're both just people. I'm not just out to sell legal
Yeah.
services
Yeah.
or whatever. I mean, I am, and that's how I make my living. But at the same time, it's more important for me to
Exactly.
connect with people and deliver something that's valuable and that's really the right fit for them than to just be like, here's my package, buy it or don't. Um, so go to executivelp.com/contact. Executive LP is Executive Legal Professionals. That's the name of my firm, as I said. But our website is executivelp.com/contact. And you can fill out the contact form. It will go right to my email inbox, and I will respond to you in a timely manner. And you can also connect with me on Facebook. We have a Facebook group and a LinkedIn group for Profit from Legal. So you just search for Profit from Legal. But if you join the Facebook group, make sure you agree to the rules. We've had a lot of people, I think, because I've been appearing on some podcasts, and people have tried to join. But if they don't agree to the Facebook group rules, then I will reject
Yeah.
their application to join. But if you join the Facebook group, you can get resources from us right there in the group. We do events, we do product launches, announcements, and stuff like that. And then profitfromlegal.com. If you go there, you'll interact with the legal operations function install product, and you can take that profitability scorecard. And when you complete the profitability scorecard, not only do you get the free gifts that I mentioned, but there's also a link in there to book in for a 10-minute chat with me. So if you want to talk to me directly, that's a great way to do it. Just hit up that profitability scorecard, and the scorecard is great at evaluating how well your legal support is already contributing to your profitability and where there's room for improvement. That's
Yeah.
what that tool does. It's a digital diagnostic for your legal profitability. Super valuable, even if you think, well, I don't have legal support yet. The answer is like, I'm going to get nothing. I'm going to get 0%, right? Even if that's true, reading the questions in the scorecard will be valuable for you, because you'll start to get a sense of what it is that a lawyer can do in your business to contribute to the value of your business to contribute to lowering your stress and lowering your risk profile. So you have a better sense of what it is that a lawyer does when you do decide to work for one by taking the scorecard. It's a good
That's
tool.
awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Noel. This is amazing. I think
Thanks for
everybody
having me.
that has not ever thought of having a legal service, I'm thinking at least the gears in the heads are starting to turn. I'm like, oh, no. The gears are turning. It's like,
Hopefully.
you know,
Yeah.
it's a necessary. You just have to have it. You know, it's just.
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate your
Well,
time.
thank you so much for.
Very much. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me on as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much. Talk soon. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Bye bye.